Today on Doctor Who Review, I start to review Colin Baker's 8th and final story. I say start because it's split into 4 segments. Trial of a Time Lord. Before I begin the review, there is just one thing I have to do. Because in this story, Colin Baker faces off against a bottle opener. Psych! Hello Whovians and welcome to my latest Doctor Who review, where today I review Trial of a Time Lord, parts 1 to 4. Basically, I said at the end of my review of Revelation of the Daleks that in order to review Colin Baker's final story, I would have to review it in the 4 segments in which it is listed as the DVD. Today's review, The Mysterious Planet, which is only the first 4 parts of the story, but basically what they decided to do after Doctor Who came back off the air after a year and a half was to have a season-long story arc, which would end up being Colin Baker's final story, and it would be 14 parts long. We have 4 segments. So segment 1, The Mysterious Planet, is parts 1 to 4. Segment 2, which is Mind Warp, is parts 5 to 8, I believe. Then we have Terror of the Vervoids, which is parts 9 to 12. And then finally, The Ultimate Foe, which is parts 13 and 14. And a huge, massive shout-out must be given to Nicola Payne, who lent me the entire box set. So, Nick, thank you very much. That really means a lot. So today's review will be The Mysterious Planet, and I will give a rating for these segments here, because basically the story kind of feels like 4 stories in one anyway, but I might give an overall rating for Trial of a Time Lord. I'll add up my scores and rate it out of 40 at the end. I mean, that would essentially be the rating of the whole season. And I will still do the mini rankings that I do after the end of every season where I rank the stories. So it shouldn't feel that much different. It's just that I'm going to title the reviews a little bit differently. So, The Mysterious Planet. The basic plot of this story, or this part of the story, is as follows. The Doctor is on trial for his life. Plucked out of time and space by the Time Lords, he is charged with transgressing the first law of time. He must defend himself against the prosecution led by the sinister Valeyard. The trial begins as the Time Lords review an adventure from the Doctor's recent past. The setting is Ravelox, where the Doctor and Peri find themselves caught in the conflict between a warrior tribe, a pair of intergalactic conmen, and a godlike robot. But deep below the surface of the mysterious planet lie secrets that threaten the very fabric of the universe, and to protect them, drastic measures have been taken that will shock the Doctor to his very core. So that is The Mysterious Planet, and unfortunately, this is a terrible, terrible first 4 parts to this story. Oh god, The Mysterious Planet, you know, this really is just, it's just boring. I just didn't like it. This is where the campy land really is coming into fruition here. Look at this guy at the front, a bottle opener. The Doctor faces off against a bottle opener robot. Bravo. It's just so silly, and the robot's voice is terrible. The actual name of the robot is Drathro, voiced by Roger Brierley. I don't know if he's actually related to David Brierley, who voices K9 in season 17, but who knows? God, I'm sorry. It's not really his fault. I mean, they obviously jiggled the voice in post. But I just felt that it got on my nerves after a while. It really got on my nerves. I just couldn't get behind this villain. It was ridiculous. Moreover, you've got these two like con men mercenary guys who are called Glitz and Dibber. One of which, he has a shrimp tattooed on his neck. I don't know why. It's just ridiculous. And they have these cut sideburns which really look ridiculous, and they carry these toy guns around. Again, the cheapness of the show is really starting to show. This was all they could come up with. I mean, obviously the show was on the brink of cancellation anyway with the previous season, but it just goes to show that no amount of time spent between Revelation of the Daleks to now did they actually think about really doing the best with the budget. They just got what they could, basically. They were hanging by a thread. Everybody says this, but the show is effectively on trial. The show itself is on trial. Because by this point, the BBC were not convinced by Doctor Who. They just thought it was a joke. And they just thought it was too far into campy land, and it was time to call it a day. But the fans protested, and luckily managed to keep it on air for a few more years. And of course, we'll get to Sylvester McCoy's era soon. This is not a great way to start Colin's last season. It really isn't. And for me, the biggest problem is the script. I haven't seen the last 3 parts yet, the last 3 segments, but Robert Holmes writes the entire thing, and it just feels to me so far very convoluted. It doesn't make a huge amount of sense. Like, the Doctor is on trial for some reason. They don't really explain the reason why he's on trial, and they're showing him his past adventures, and then most of this part is cutting back to that, showing the Doctor and Peri on their adventure. So the whole adventure that they show on this planet feels very isolated and doesn't really actually have anything to do with what's going on in the trial. Just choose one or the other. Like, if you're going to have the trial storyline, go with that. Or I'd rather them just do the individual adventures, because that would be much easier to follow. It doesn't make sense. Like, also, why are these 2 con men guys, Glitz and Dibber, why are they at war with this tribe? Oh, God. I mean, this tribe... This tribe that is led by Catricia. I mean, my goodness me, Joan Sims is an over-actress. I mean, to the hilt. I mean, their costumes are ridiculous, but she is an over-actress. And the whole thing is completely silly. It is completely ridiculous. I laughed more times than I actually cried here. Also, we have this other robot called L1. It's like basically a digger robot. It doesn't do anything for me. There's that stupid scene where it enters the barn or whatever and grabs Colin Baker and actually knocks him unconscious and pulls him right up against it. And then we see it like rolling through the woods, and Colin Baker's in a pose like this. He's like lying on top of the things, and it's just so... It really is stupid, guys. It's just silly to look at. I just really couldn't follow it. I just struggled to actually follow this. And all the supporting cast, they don't do anything good either. The sets are even pretty bad as well. The white corridors and everything are all cheap, and they really just haven't got the enthusiasm to keep the show on air anymore. It feels like they're forcing themselves to do this. And the actual trial room, it's like any old courtroom in Downing Street. I mean, you know, you could go to you could go to the Houses of Parliament, and that would have been fine. You could have filmed that. However, the story does open with a very impressive model shot. I'll give it that. I do like the opening model shot, but this script is a convoluted mess. I've yet to see the last 3/4 of the story, but so far my impressions are not good. The character of the Valeyard, played by Michael Jaston, he's okay, but really, like, the whole thing just feels kind of pointless. And the Inquisitor, played by Linda Bellingham, they just feel pointless. The whole thing feels pointless, to be honest. I do, however, like the costumes. It's nice for Gallifrey. It's nice to have the Gallifreyan costumes back. But to be perfectly honest, this is a complete waste of time. And also, as for Colin Baker himself, I'm sorry, I just don't think he's very good. Once again, he's gone back to his usual self. He's sort of hamming it up and everything. He's just giving too much of an over-the-top performance for me in this one. Although his dynamic with Peri is a little bit better, but that being said, it's not enough to save the story. I mean, Nicola Bryant, thank God, is once again the shining light in this story as Peri. She really is great, but sadly the story surrounding her is just not very good. And I know that this is actually Peri's penultimate story. Well, technically it's her penultimate story. I mean, obviously this is one massive story, but if you split it into 4 stories, then this is her penultimate story. Next time, she will leave in Mind Warp. That's when she leaves. So the music, the soundtrack is shit. It's fucking awful. And speaking of which, they changed the theme music for the opening titles I don't like it. I think it's awful. I think the original opening theme music they had from end of Tom Baker to Davison and then into season 22, that was fine. But season 23's opening titles, oh god, just fuck off. So there's not much else to say about this one. I'm gonna have to give The Mysterious Planet, I'll be generous, I'll give it a 3 out of 10. Cheers. I couldn't give it any more than that. I really couldn't. It is just terrible. Terrible. Yeah, and again, having a bottle opener as the villain. Just ridiculous. It is just ridiculously silly. So, that concludes the first quarter of my review of Trial of a Time Lord. I will continue my review of this next time when I do Mind Warp, which is the second segment, which will be parts 5 to 8. And obviously it will be Perry's final story. So it will be sad to see Perry go. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching this. And until next time, I'm Mr. TARDIS11. See ya.